right, guys, let's get this council meeting of March 2nd, 2021 called to order. I was looking for James Bode. Is he with us?
I just got let in.
All right, James, guess what? You get to do the pledge.
Oh, fantastic.
Everybody else mute the mic.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Bode. All right, Deidre?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I move to excuse Megan Feast from tonight's meeting as she's unable to join us due to illness.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second to excuse Megan. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Megan, you are excused. All right, Donna, will you do the roll call, please?
Yes, I will, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Peterson,
Here.
Councilmember Bode,
Here.
Councilmember Inesco,
Here.
Councilmember Schmidt,
Here.
Councilmember McDowell,
Present.
and Mayor Dorsey.
Here. Okay. Council have any changes to the agenda tonight? All right, hearing none. At this time, I'd like to remind the members of the public that they can make comments during the public comment period, as well as on any items listed on the business agenda or the action agenda. When making a public comment, you will need to raise your hand electronically on the Zoom app, state your full name and whether you reside within the city, within Mason County, or reside elsewhere. Option number one, join the Zoom meeting by clicking on the link that is displayed on the city's webpage. The link is listed on the agendas and minutes page under the tab that says more. Option two is the email city manager Jeff Knighton. And option number three, call Jeff's office. Both the email address and the phone number are displayed on the screen of Mason Web TV's streaming video. All right. Council members have a board report. Okay.
I had to miss my left board meeting this morning due to I had to go out of town in the morning, so that would have been my only report.
All right, thank you. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to accept the consent agenda as read.
All right,
Second.
second, all right. We have a motion and a second. First say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion will carry. All right, presentations. Tonight we have a GFC presentation. John from the FCS group will give us details. Hi, John.
Hi, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I think my associate Tagi's going to put the slideshow up. So we're back, and Tagi, you can move to the next slide, please. As you saw, I'm a principal with FCS Group, and Tagi Acker is the project manager. You probably remember we've touched on this topic before, and we're talking about stormwater. We have been talking about stormwater rates and the needs for the stormwater utility. Tonight, we're going to talk about general facilities charges. Looking back, you first heard about this on December 15th when your own staff talked about stormwater rates and stormwater rate structures. Then we were here on February 2nd to talk about the revenue needs from rates of the stormwater utility. We were back again on the 16th to talk about how a change to the city's rate structure could actually reduce the rate impacts. So we talked a lot about that rate structure and a possible rate credit approach. Tonight, we're going to be talking about general facilities charges. These are the one-time fees paid at the time of new development by new development. So these are not ongoing rates. If there are loose ends to tie up, then we would aim to do that on April 6th, 2021. So Tagi's going to go through the bulk of the content after this next slide, and then I'll be back to talk. We'll have a little bit of rate information to share too, but he will go through some background on general facilities charges, summarize the calculation. We have some information on comparable GFCs around the state and the neighborhood that we'll share with you as well.
Thank you, John. As John just mentioned, we did want to provide a little bit of background on GFCs. These are one-time charges, not to be confused with ongoing rates, and they're paid by new development when they connect to the system. And what you can do with these GFC revenues is pay for general facilities of the stormwater utility. In other words, capital projects for the stormwater utility. And so we'll walk through kind of how they're calculated and a couple of ways that they can be used. In general, GFCs recover the costs of growth from growth. And then as growth occurs, that generates GFC revenues, which can then be put towards capital projects. And what this does is essentially reimburses existing customers who have paid for available capacity and existing infrastructure in advance of that growth. And so as growth occurs, that is a way that generates revenue for capital. And as we'll get into here in a couple of slides, it's not necessarily as reliable as, say, your monthly rates. There are some low years and some high years, generally tied to development trends. Currently, the city of Shelton has a water and sewer GFC. It does not have a stormwater GFC. So for a typical single-family customer, they would pay a GFC at the time of development of just over $4,500. The water component is $1,260 and the sewer component is $3,258. So combined, without a stormwater GFC of just over $4,500. As I talked about a couple of slides ago, depending on the year, GFC revenues can be very low. For example, in 2014, off to the left here, combined annual water and sewer GFC revenue was approximately $15,000. And compare that with 2019, when combined water and sewer GFC revenue for the entire year was just under $350,000. So definitely some ups and downs looking at the past 6 years for water and sewer GFC revenues. So it is helpful, but not necessarily a reliable source of revenue for those capital projects. The general GFC methodology is shown here. We've got the cost basis, and that's divided by the applicable customer base. So in this calculation, the cost basis is the numerator, and the applicable customer base is the denominator. Specifically, we're recommending something we refer to as the average integrated approach. We take existing system costs, add that to future project costs identified in the city's 6-year capital improvement plan, and we divide that by existing plus future customers. It's a stable methodology, doesn't have the big ups and downs each time you calculate it, and it does provide equity for existing customers as new growth occurs. So putting numbers to that approach, we add together existing system costs plus future project costs, divide that by 10,301 equivalent service unit. That results in a GFC of $879 per ESU. So a single family customer would pay $879. For example, a commercial development would pay $8.79 per ESU based on measured impervious area, similar to the ESU rate structure that we talked about at the previous meeting. So when we incorporate the stormwater GFC into both the water and sewer components, the new total would be just under $5,400. So currently, just water and sewer, $4,518. With stormwater added to that, that's $5,397. We did look at some regional stormwater utilities to see what GFCs they have in place. And based on this survey group, the city of Shelton would be the lowest, just under federal way there. And their charge is actually fairly new in the past couple of years. And then from there on up, it ranges from $1,300 in Poulsbo up to over $2,000 in Renton and Kent. And there are a few area-specific downtown stormwater GFCs in King County. If you live in a certain area of the city, it can be upwards of $10,000. But just want to provide a survey here to kind of show you where Shelton would stack up with several other stormwater utilities in the greater region. And I'll pass it off to John to summarize the results and talk about next steps.
Thanks, Toggy. And I will, we did a little further research on Bremerton and Olympia as a couple of cities, larger we know, but who have all three GFCs, water, sewer, and stormwater. In the case of Olympia, their three GFCs combined, actually just water and sewer together, are almost $16,000. And for Bremerton, over $15,000. So just to give you an idea of how those compare when looking at all three charges together. So our proposal, based on the calculations that Toggy's just been through, is that the city consider adopting the GFC of $879 per ESU. As he mentioned, a new single-family dwelling unit would pay that $879. A duplex would pay 2 times that because there would be 2 ESUs, and then all other newly developed property would pay $879 times the number of ESUs, which is an ESU being 2,900 square feet of impervious surface area. A couple of other notes as the council considers this. We would also recommend that the city index the GFC and increase it by inflation, construction cost inflation every year to keep pace with the cost of projects going up. One thing to note is we have calculated what's essentially a legal maximum, so the council could choose to adopt a number up to that amount, but is not obligated to adopt the full 879, although the GFC does offset some of the needs from rates to help fund capital. So anything that's not recovered in the GFC ultimately comes from the ratepayers. So as far as next steps, and this is sort of the whole package of presented material and recommendations for the council to consider. Rate recommendations are that the city adopt the rates needed to fund ongoing operations and planned capital projects, that the city transition to the equivalent service unit rate structure, with 1 ESU being equal to 2,900 square feet of impervious surface area. Consider, along with that change, adoption of rate credits for low-income seniors and qualifying disabled customers, a 20% rate credit comparable to the city's existing 17%, 10% for non-residential with qualifying on-site mitigation, and 40% for individual NPDES permit holders. We talked about the GFC already as part of that package adopting a GFC of 879 per ESU and then increasing it with inflation each year. As you consider transitioning to the ESU rate structure, we did want to give you some idea of what those impacts are. So if you look at the stacked bar here are operating costs in the lower section, the new FTE needed in 2022, and then average annual capital spending. And this is representative of year 2023, but it is pretty representative of any year in the planning period. If the city were to adopt the recommended rate of between $17 and $18 a month per ESU, it would be able to cover that full cost of operating and capital. And that would generate a little under $1.9 million a year. If the city decided to adopt a rate less than that amount, $15 a month would be enough to cover operations, but little or no capital. At $12 a month, you see it would not cover all the planned operations costs. There would need to be operating cuts made. And if the city were to stick at the existing rate and rate structure, that generates under $800,000 a year. And you see that falls well short of revenue needs. So just as points of reference, a minimum of $15 is needed to fund operating costs. And in order to cover planned capital, that rate would need to move to $18 a month, all predicated on a move to the ESU rate structure as well. So that's our prepared material for tonight.
All right, thank you, John. Donna, do we have anyone interested in making a public comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have one person on my list, and I can see Scotty Mills has his hand up. So Scotty, you will be second on my list.
Point of order, are we taking the public comment period, or are we taking comment on the presentation?
Say that again, Joe. I broke up a little bit.
Are we going to the public comment period, or are you asking for comment on this presentation?
On this presentation.
Okay.
Then never mind what I said, Mr. Mayor. I jumped right ahead
Okay.
to the general public comment.
Okay, we'll go to general public. Do we have anyone interested in making a public comment there?
Yes, I do. Jenny
Okay.
Brush is first on the list. So Jenny,
Okay.
I will start the timer and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, I would like to again talk about the project across from the Y, the 90, I believe it's 90 acres. I feel that you should maybe have Steve Whitehouse in your decision making. I think that the project should be not given to somebody out of the area. I think it should be local, and local also use local workers to do it. I believe if you sell the properties, I think you only should sell maybe half and leave the other half for the city to own. And part of the deal that you would make with the developer is that he would have to also make walking paths and bicycle paths, and maybe also include 3 or 4 covered areas with barbecues on the city property. And that would be a win for both, because it would make his development look better and it would be good for the city. But don't use all the land, but have the developer pay for the development of part of our land too, because I know the city is short on funds. And then I don't think the homes should be squished together. I think that there should be less homes, and that it should be fit in with the rest of the neighborhood there. And also, I think you also need to look at what the attorney, I believe he said, that you need to also include, when you're selling any of that property, the value of the timber on it. I know it's a hard decision, but I think that maybe you should include some people in the city area that also may be able to input some wisdom. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jenny.
Okay.
Jeff, is it okay to back up a little bit? I think Joe might have had a comment. Did you have a comment, Joe? Or a question for John?
No, I was a little confused. We're leaving our friends from FCS group hanging here. So are we
Yeah, I'm
moving
sorry.
on from
I
that?
messed that up a little.
All right. Yeah.
Do we have
just
any
a
questions
chance
for
Q&A
John?
on that?
All right, I'm sorry. Mark Kamen? You're on mute, Mark.
Hey, John, I had a quick question on your presentation. You mentioned the city of Olympia and Bremerton as far as rates for stormwater. And I was curious, did you guys did research how many of Shelton residents or even the new construction projects actually connect to the stormwater system for their like rainwater or stormwater purposes? I didn't see that. And to my knowledge, most of them do not do direct connections. They all do ground infiltration and not going into stormwater. So why would we charge the residents when they're not actually hooking up to stormwater?
So and it is very common that properties charged not just in Shelton, but in other places, developed properties that are not directly connected to the public system are charged for stormwater because the city has an NPDES permit. It's required to meet minimum requirements to improve water quality, to do a number of other best practices that are of benefit to everyone in the city. The other thing is, even if they're not connected to the stormwater system per se, they're connected to the municipal street system, which is defined to be part of the stormwater conveyance system by the EPA. So they are full beneficiaries of the system, even if they are not directly connected. Impervious surface area is arguably an imperfect measure of how much a person should be charged. It's not like water where we can meter the amount, but it's the best that we have at this point in the industry's evolution, I guess you could say.
Another comment on that then. So then there's not any legal issues with charging people for things that technically they're not connected to versus like a property tax or some other way of kind of taxation versus through the whole community spread out, whether or not, since it's not actually connected for like a private residence. Even a new construction development won't be directly connected in the city. I did think that would be legal challenges with that as well.
There is a landmark case on that very issue, Teeter versus Clark County, which has been, I think it's 1980, and it essentially, the ruling made legal indirect service provided to a property like that. So the bar, although much higher for rates than it is for taxes, is pretty low when it comes to stormwater rates and demonstrating a direct nexus between the property and the amount charged. That indirect service is okay as per Teeter versus Clark County. And I'm a layman, but I've heard that enough times to speak hopefully with authority about it.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, generally during presentations to council, there is a very limited amount of interaction between the public that is taking a look at the presentation and getting the information, and the consultants themselves. We'd be more than happy to answer any of these questions in the future, but I think a more appropriate forum would be either person to person with me or with our public works staff as council considers what the rate structure is going to look like going forward.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question about that. Is that because you don't want Mark with his questions to educate? Because I know for myself, I'm sitting over here getting educated with what
That
Mark is
has-
saying.
It
No,
has nothing, it has
nothing to
nothing
do
to
with
do
that.
with that. It has to do with Robert's Rules of Order and decorum at a public meeting. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer those, but this in particular isn't the appropriate time.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Mark, if you're still listening. All right. Any other comments for John? All right. Let's move on then. First item on the business agenda is a resolution for mutual aid agreement. Public Works Director,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor,
what? Go ahead.
I do have someone else signed up for general
Oh,
public
there was someone
comment.
else. Okay.
Are you ready for that, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Scotty Mills, are you still interested in making a public comment?
Yes, I'm here. I can.
Okay, Scotty, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, 1827 Lake Boulevard, City of Shelton is the address. Scotty Mills, and I'm coming out tonight on behalf of Habitat for Humanity. We're a nonprofit global organization working in communities for housing. And we had a board meeting last week regarding the projects, or excuse me, the 400 rental project. And 3 out of our 9 board members do live in the city limits. And the board had discussion, we took a vote, and we don't not support this project. And we just want to go on record as someone that does not support that. In addition, in closing, just something to put out there, and this doesn't apply to all those in public service or want to be elected to public service, but just keep in mind that it's public service, not self-service. And those in the city limits and outlying areas want a community by design, not default. So thank you, Mr. Mayor and Donna, and hi, Deidre, for allowing Habitat for Humanity to go on record as not supporting this project.
All right. Thank you, Scotty, for your comments. Anyone else, Donna?
I don't see anyone else, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Now we'll move on to business agenda. The first item on the business agenda is a resolution for mutual aid agreement. Public Works Director Jay Harris has the information for us.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Public and Council. Jay Harris, your Public Works Director. Tonight I have a briefing for Wawarn. And what Wawarn is a water and wastewater emergency response network. And it allows private and public utilities to all join into this network. And the city wouldn't need to declare an emergency like you would if it was a statewide type of thing for state resources, but allows us to get resources nearly instantaneously from another city nearby or from another utility provider nearby. So if we needed assistance, we need to identify what the need is. That could be staff, that could be chemicals, people, materials, backhoes. We put the word out. The people come in and take care of our needs, and then we get billed at rates that are in Wawarn's schedules. So the city can also respond to other agencies' needs at the same time. It's a two-way street, right? And that if we have available people or equipment or chemicals, we could deploy them to a city or a utility that's also in need. So we're all out there sort of to help each other. So the benefits is there's no cost to participate. It's voluntary. It really increases our emergency preparedness. And there's one single agreement that we have to execute to get resources statewide. There's a cost reimbursement mechanism in there. And then any public or private utility can do this agreement. So in Oregon, my former job, I was part of Oregon Warren or Warren. And we actually responded to the city of Amity. They lost all pressure in their water system. Their tank got a big leak in it, and they ended up going dry, all their lines. We sent 3 people for 3 days and got their system back up and running. they only had 3 water workers there or 2. They did not have enough staff. So we really helped them out, got paid back for it, obviously. Another one was City of Salem. They get their water out of near Detroit Lake. They had a huge toxic algae bloom. Salem had water quality issues. We had a bunch of filtration units we sent down to them. They never used them, but they had them on hand, which was just all part of this process. So I think this is a good thing for the city. There's no cost, no obligation, but it gives us a mechanism to help others and for others to help us if we request. One other thing that we're working on for water is a water risk and resiliency study for the whole system. We have a consultant working on that this year. That's telemetry risks, SCADA risks, which is a supervisory control, our IT system, our billing systems. It's pretty enumerative. The actual physical system itself, fencing, reservoirs, that sort of thing. So we got that going on. And then also an emergency response plan. So if we do lose all pressure in our system due to a man-made disaster or a natural disaster, hopefully we don't have a man-made one, but they can happen, that we have an emergency response plan that will speak to how we're supposed to get water to customers and what we need to do. And so that emergency response plan also that we're working on, we'll be doing tabletop exercises late this year with the crews here and get them familiar with all the permutations of an emergency. You can never be prepared 100%, but if you sit and flip through manuals and do things, you're a little better off when something actually happens. So that's my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Do we have public comment here, Donna?
No, we don't, Mr. Mayor.
Hang on, Jay. All right, do we have a motion?
I move to place resolution 1187-0121 and the wall warrant agreement on the March 16th action agenda.
All right, thank you, Eric. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments or questions for Jay?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, who was the second? Was that Joe Schmidt, Councilmember Schmidt?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No one has I can't see any reason why we wouldn't want to do this. So I think we're all pretty much in the same place. All right. We have a motion and a second to place resolution number 1187-0121 and the wall warrant agreement on the March 16th action agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is a resolution for final acceptance of the 2020 residential paving project. Senior Associate Engineer Colby Glasser has the detail.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. A brief recap of our 2020 residential paving. This project went out to bid in late July of last year. The original contract award amount was $257,629. It was awarded September 1st. September 2nd, we had a change order reducing the cost for about approximately $47,000. They started on September 8th. They had 20 working days. They received substantial completion September 21st and physical completion in the middle of November. The final amount came out to be $192,362.15, which was under budget. I have a few photos to share with you. Oh no. Let's see if I can get this pulled up now. Oh no. worked earlier.
We can see your PowerPoint.
I can see your
Oh,
slides.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay,
can
because
see it.
I can't see it. That's lovely. Okay.
If you just want to hit F5, it should go ahead and start that show for you. Perfect.
Okay, so our first picture here is East E Street at the alley between Olympic Highway North and Jefferson. You can see the alligator cracking along the shoulder, and then the final on the opposite side. The next picture I have is East E Street at King. Again, there's alligator cracking on the shoulders. There's transverse and longitudinal cracking along the across the intersection. The next one I have is East G Street and Jefferson looking west, which would be towards Olympic Highway North. Alligator cracking, there's some transverse and longitudinal cracking there also. And East I Street and Jefferson looking towards Olympic Highway North, transverse and longitudinal cracking. And this gives a overview of what the areas that we paved. There's a total of 15 blocks, 1,700 tons of asphalt. They adjusted 17 manholes in the East Mountain View area as well as the West Mountain View area, which is what last year's paving and this year's paving. And then a recap of the total cost paid. This concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you, Cobry. Can you
Mayor?
hold on can you hold on just a second?
Yeah.
Okay. We have any public comment here, Donna?
No, Mr. Mayor, we don't.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Anyone?
I'll take it. I move to place resolution number 1188-0221 on the March 16th action agenda.
All right, you have a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to place resolution number 1188-0221 on the March
Excuse me,
16th
Mr. Mayor.
agenda. Yes,
Now is the time for council questions.
I thought we did it right after the,
We did public comment right after, but I think
Okay.
Kathy, Councilmember McDowell had a question
Okay.
perhaps.
Kathy, go
No,
ahead.
I don't have a question. I just have a statement that these are the projects in our city limits in our city, great city of Shelton that people really look forward to having. And I commend all that are involved in the planning of these roads and streets and people behind the planning. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.
Here,
Anyone
here.
else? Okay. We have a motion and a second to place resolution number 1188-0221 on the March 16th action agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The last item on the business agenda is a presentation regarding pavement preservation planning. City Engineer Ken Gill will share the information with us.
Good evening, council. It's good to see every one of you out there. So I also wanted to echo and thank Cobry for all of her hard work on that. She is one of the most passionate and energetic engineers I've ever met. So she's a local Shelton grad, and we're lucky to have her on our staff. So thank you so much, Cobry, for managing that project. I am going to share my screen with you guys. So what you should see is a title slide that talks about the next 3 years of pavement preservation. What we're going to talk about today is Shelton's got about 118 miles to maintain. That's a lot. So we're going to talk briefly about our pavement condition ratings work that our consultant did, the maintenance field staff and their recommendations. So some of them with almost 30 years of experience fixing potholes in Shelton and making sure that when you drive down the road, it doesn't go bump or your wheels, hubcaps don't fall off. We're going to talk about the proposed list of projects that we've got. It's really long, but it's a working list. And the roads that actually go get paved, we're still be determined. But I just want to check in with council. You got to see where Kobe described what you did last year, and this is what you get to see in the next 3. So this slide is really busy, but really all you need to take away from this slide is green is good and red is bad. Okay, so this was our pavement condition rating. That's where you go out and you look at the cracks and the potholes, and just you imagine, the nicely smooth paved roads are pretty good, right? That's considered 100, and the really bad ones are down below in the 30s. So, but this is just a snapshot. This is not the whole city, but we'll get to that later. So Kobe made you guys a really great map of the whole entire city, and I just took a snapshot of East and West Mountain View because Kobe just did a great presentation on it. This is where we focused our effort the last 2 years. So just like Councilmember McDowell said, a lot of happy residents in Mountain View because there's nothing better. And maybe it's just a civil engineer in me to have a nice brand new asphalt road in front of your house. So, taking this information combined with the information on the next slide I'm going to show you. So this one looks a little fuzzy, a little smudged. And the reason why is because our long-term maintenance staff, Todd Rhodes, Matt Dixon, guys and men and women that have been here more than 25 plus years, have fixed potholes, responded to residents' complaints, and know where the problem areas are in town and know what needs. So this is their markups in highlight and green highlighter of areas that we need to focus on because that's a lot of complaint driven. So adding those things together, the model, the people that work here, complaints from ratepayers, from council members, we put the list of all our chip seal needs. So remember last year, we didn't do chip seal. This year we're planning to, but this is a long, long list that I'm not expecting you to memorize, but it shows where we need to get some chip seal down. Chip seal, remember, is you put down some bitumen, you put down some rock, you seal coat it and restripe it. And it's kind of like a Band-Aid. It lasts for 5 or 6 years, and then you got to do it again. HMA stands for hot mix asphalt. That's what the project that Cobra just described. So putting down is a minimum of 2.5 inches in our residential areas, and thicker on our areas like Railroad. It goes up to 4 to 6 inches of thick, but it's based on the wheel loads. But this is kind of the areas that we have focused on and decide, hey, we need to put some hot mix asphalt down there to make those roads continue to ride smooth. Back and went the wrong way, excuse me. Here's our HMP needs going beyond 2021. So where we're focusing on that. So the question that I always get is, how are we going to pay for it all? Because our needs exceed what the transportation benefit district that you guys all pay into, and along with your neighbors. So it ends in 2026. And for us, that's not tomorrow, but it's coming up, right? Because it takes time to enact the first one. And we need to decide as a council if we want to keep that going, if that's a good source, or if we want to do something else. And I've listed a couple options. We've also made some friends with Mason County. They get some Surface Transportation Board funding. We've applied for that, around $300,000. So we're working with our friends at Mason County for that funds. The Transportation Improvement Board in the last couple of years has paid for pavement preservation. This year they're not. If you go to their website, they're not advertising. They just don't have enough gas tax funds. So that kind of concludes my presentation. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Looking ahead in the next, right now, our next couple of months, our maintenance guys are going out, focusing and TVing sewer mains, looking at water mains, and determining where there's bad drainage and where we need to focus our utility efforts in conjunction with our paving efforts to get the most bang for your buck. Because the worst thing you want to do is pave over a road and then go out there and fix a water main or a sewer main. So with that, I'm going to roll it to the question side, and it's all you guys. So I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Okay. Joe has one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just maybe a suggestion or question. Nothing I want to put on anybody's shoulders right this second, but I know for the last few years, at times we've talked about partnership with Mason County Public Works with their chip seal program. I'm just wondering if there's potentially an opportunity in this coming season, because I know we fell short with a contractor last year that kind of left us holding the bag, right? I'm just curious, if it can work, that'd be fantastic to see a little partnership. And I also think it would be great for the street crews potentially to get some experience on the chip seal crew. So anyway, I just wanted to provide that. And if that's something we can work on, I would be fully supportive.
Okay. Great. We'll continue to go down that path.
And Ken, could you speak a bit to the prioritization of these projects? I know we focused a lot of today's presentation on Mountain View because it was such a beautiful tie-in with Cobrie's presentation. But obviously, folks who are on the Turner side of things or who live downtown or in other areas might wonder how we come about determining what areas we pave and what factors go into that decision. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, you bet. So the question I heard was, you focused on East and West Mountain View. What about the rest of the city? So the reason I put those in West Mountain View also is because you can see it on a slide easier. But another shout out to Cobrie. In the last section of your packet is the roads that we plan to pave citywide. Okay. And I didn't put it in the presentation because it doesn't fit in the slide. It wouldn't do justice to it. But if you scroll in your packet, and if you want me to, I can do that in mine. There is Cobrie's map of the entire city that shows where we're going to pave in the next 5 or 6 years. And it is not all west of me. As a matter of fact, there's very few in there. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
What's the road rating that you wanted to explain, Deidre?
I mean, that dovetails nicely, but I know the other piece of that is what are the things that the city considers, city staff, whether it's road rating, whether it's partnership opportunities, how far those dollars stretch, mobilization costs, what are the things that help determine what areas or how many areas we tackle any given year and how we prioritize those?
So the question I heard is, how do I prioritize what roads get paved? And I use every tool that we've got. The road condition rating, what funding opportunities we have, what our streets crew thinks needs, and who I can, with the chip seal that Joe or Councilmember Schmidt mentioned, how can I partner with them? So I use all those tools to try to get some new paving on the ground any way I can. So there's no magic wand that says, hey, that road's going to get paved this next year. It really comes down to when we go out to bid. And I'll have that answer to share with you what we're doing this year in a couple of months. And at that time, I can say, we went through the bidding process. We plan to award to this contractor for this amount. And here's the roads that we're doing this year. And when we award that contractor, that paving contract, that's when I can answer your question.
And if I may, I don't see any other hands up, so I'll take the liberty of also saying you're at a bit of a disadvantage, not only having Joe with his professional background, but my father has worked in road maintenance since 1988. My husband's a civil engineer, so I probably hear more about this than I ought to or should. But I'm also really pleased to see that the city's taking a more comprehensive approach to some of these things and not just focusing on pavement on the ground, but looking at other preservation techniques, things like specifically chip seal, because the dollar spreads so much further and gives us time to really have an overview of how our long-term plan is coming together. So I really want to applaud you and city staff for taking that under advisement as we move forward.
Thank you.
What days are you in the office? I'd like to come down and meet with you and see the entire map.
You can come see me anytime you want. I'm usually here Monday through Thursday from 7:30 to 6. Would you like me to pull up that map for you on your part of your council packet? Just to show off Cobra's work?
I think that's okay. I'll just come down. If anybody else wants to see it, that's fine.
I can see it on my computer.
Okay.
All right. All right. Any more questions from the council?
Thanks, Ken.
You're welcome. Good to see every one of you.
Good
All right,
job,
Donna,
Ken.
do we have public comment here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can see that Todd Fagg has his hand up. Todd, are you interested in commenting on this item?
I am.
Okay, you know the drill, sir. You have
Yes,
3
ma'am.
minutes.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My only question is we're talking about the roads, and I am not an engineer, so I'm not quite sure how it all works. I know that recently we had some repaving done in our very own driveway, and we were recommended to get 2.5 inches because of the weight of certain vehicles. And my question is that, I guess, not really a question, but I'm kind of befuddled that looking at that map, there are a tremendous amount of roads that are in really, really, really bad shape. But yet at the same time, council is considering bringing in an additional 400 units. And if you take those 400 units and you say mom and dad each have a car, you're looking at an additional 800 cars of wear and tear on the roads. And again, I am not an engineer, so I don't know how that factors in, but I'm relying on common sense that it really just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I thank you for your time. And yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Todd. All right. So anybody else, Donna?
No, there isn't, Mr. Mayor.
All right. We'll move on to the action agenda tonight, which there are none of. So I guess we're moving on to Jeff, City Manager report.
Should probably unmute myself. Might make this a little more informative. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. There's a couple things I wanted to mention tonight, a couple exciting opportunities for the public involvement, and just some information for the public so we can look forward to more normalcy than we have experienced over the past year. We are about a year into this now, which I think everybody recognizes. But I also want to make sure that people recognize that when the pollen starts coming down and everything like that, it's allergies. It's not anything else. Hopefully not anything else for most people. One thing I wanted to mention was the stakeholders group for our development code review. That's going to be about a year-long process for members of the community to participate in making our development code easy to read, easy to understand, and easy to apply for people that want to invest in Shelton. And that's part of what the development code should do. We'll also be reviewing it to make sure that all the language in there, one, complies with all federal, state, and local requirements, and any updates that have happened since the last time it was updated. and that the engineering standards and the development code match, because that is a point of great friction. So we're all working together to make sure those things match up and all pull in the same direction. Deadline for letters of interest is March 15th at 5 o'clock. So if anybody's interested in participating in that, please submit your letter to our Community Development Director, Mark Ziegler, and then this will be a topic at your April 6th council meeting for confirmation for those on the committee, and then work can get started. Next, our farmers market is going to start on May 1st. So that's a date that everybody can look forward to. That'll be downtown, same location it's been for the last several years, but that'll be nice to have when the sun comes out like it has the last couple of days here. And then lastly, our art contest for our art boxes. We've had 20 submissions, and they're available for people to vote on, the ones that they like the best, through March 12th, and that's on our OpenGov Town Hall website. So take advantage of that and vote on your favorites, and we'll see if we can brighten up a couple of corners of the community with art drawn from our community. So with that, that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Jeff?
I do not have a question, but I have a comment. And I just want to say that I'm really thankful to see that this past Monday, the YMCA had its grand opening and city was there to help celebrate that. That is a property that was owned by the city and has been leased for community benefit. And I'm really excited to see how quickly that project has come together. They're still working on the pool, but the facility itself is really well done. And I'm pleased to see that there's another opportunity for folks to focus on their health and wellness, as we're all really apt to do during this difficult time with COVID. So thanks to city staff and everyone who was part of that project and moving it forward. It was quite a milestone to be able to mark that on Monday.
Thank you, Deidre. Kathy?
Yes, I watched the ribbon cutting via Zoom here in my house with my cup of tea and put my feet up, and it was a nice ribbon cutting. I am anxious to see the inside of the building. So high five to the YMCA.
Cool.
James?
I wanted to actually just reach out and thank everyone in the community who's reached out to me recently, because I've been almost overwhelmed with how many people are reaching out about some of the things that are going on in the city. I'm really glad there's that much community involvement, and I hope they keep it up on other issues that come up in town.
You bet. All right. Does council have any new items for discussion? Okay, seeing none. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, March 16th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. This meeting is adjourned at 6:58. I have.